There's been a lot of talk lately surrounding the diet system currently within Path of Titans, and today I'm here to give my 2 cents on the matter. I think the community at large might be misunderstanding the intended function of the hunger and thirst meters. After taking some time to mull it over in my head, I realized that it reminded me a lot of a mechanic from another game I play, so I'm going to use that game as an example to help you all understand where I'm coming from. Magic the Gathering is a trading card game that I have played for the better part of 14 years. For those unfamiliar, in this game, both players shuffle up a deck of roughly 60 cards, set their life totals to 20, and use a combination of creature cards and spell cards they draw each turn to try and reduce their opponent's life total to 0. Pretty straightforward at first, but there's a catch. If an opponent would go to draw a card from their deck, and there are no cards left to draw, that player immediately loses the game. Why, you ask? To add urgency to the match. It's a measure meant to limit the time you have available to finish your opponent so that even in the event of a gridlocked game state, the game will still at some point end with a winner. Now, in a fighting game such as Mortal Kombat or Street Fighters, duels have a match timer to ensure an inevitable conclusion. However, I don't feel those games were good equivalents due to the fact that there's nothing a player can do to extend or interact with the clock while in the middle of combat. In a game of Magic, however, there are strategies you can implement to interact with your deck as a means of delaying or expediting the speed at which you and your opponents empty your decks. In Magic, this necessary resource management acts as the match clock, and becomes both an alternative win condition and a dynamic element that players have the opportunity to engage with. Hunger and thirst in their current state within Path function much the same. They act as a clock ticking silently in the background. As your hunger and thirst get lower, your health recovery rate gets slower, and the risk of starvation or dehydration gets higher and higher. Ignoring it for too long could lead to your death, so it's important to manage this resource carefully in order to ensure your effective fight timer and recovery rate are both in peak condition. This adds an extra factor to consider when deciding whether or not to engage another player. Because of this, I would argue that hunger and thirst are much more of a combat mechanic than they are a survival mechanic. Ramps are able to expedite your drain rates with Plague. Different playables digest food at different speeds, and have different stomach sizes, which creates varied and unique lengths of time each creature can go without food or water. My own group has used groups of raptors and flyers to locate, kill, and consume the critters in a highly populated POI, in order to force the larger predators to go elsewhere to find food. Even outside of that, I've participated in fights that lasted long enough that food became a real concern, and our smaller members had to begin hunting critters to feed our large carnivores so we could keep the pressure up in the fight without sacrificing our heal rates. Plucking berries from bushes to deny herbivores their food is also something I've seen done by groups dedicated to starving out their prey. Now that we all have a better understanding of the broader impact the system has on the gameplay loop, let's talk about my feelings on someone else's proposed diet changes. Tuna made a couple of videos showcasing a very well thought out idea, the links to which will be in the description. The TLDR of her system would allow dinosaurs to eat every item on their respective menus, while offering some form of buff for properly balancing how much you eat of each in accordance with your playable's primary, secondary, and tertiary diet. It's pretty complex, and the UI design isn't the most intuitive, but it's still well thought out. However, I worry it may be too similar to the Isle's diet system to be usable. Additionally, Alderaan Matt has already basically stated he doesn't want a diet rework to be too complex, or else it won't be easily digestible for most players. So, what can we do? What's something simple we can implement that already has a bedrock we can expand upon later? Well, what if I told you something like that already exists? Certain medium and large-sized fish provide unique, temporary buffs to dinosaurs with the ability to consume them. Additionally, roots, melons, and bananas provide both food and hydration to herbivores that are able to eat them. These small side bonuses on these consumables give them a unique utility that other food items distinctly lack, and with the questing system inevitably planning to phase out the old collect quests, it's important to find a use for those assets that can contribute meaningfully to the gameplay experience. With the right adjustments to the abilities in the metabolism slot, and enough diversity among buffs the various consumables provide, players could have the freedom to come up with their own unique diet for each of their dinosaurs, one that fits their playstyle and preferences, without needing to conform to a rigid and complex system. It would be just as optional as Tuna's perfect diet idea, but with less hoops to jump through and a more simplified UI. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best one. I think all Alderaan really needs to do is build upon what they already have, and they'll surely be able to craft a unique system that serves to meaningfully impact Path's gameplay loop. There's plenty of avenues this framework could take that would lead to a truly engaging system, and I hope that when Alderaan does decide to address the diet system, they start right here at the foundations. I'm excited to see where they may take it one day. Until next time.